aspect of the American economy that was 8% of our jobs, but 30% of our growth, and it drastically increased the average wages and productivities of all Americans. We have to have a source of new jobs every 5 to 8 years. Clean energy, go figure, you don't have to import that. Conservation, solar, wind. And I just want to give you a few examples. United Technologies, one of our finest tech companies, in the last few years has doubled its size, doubled its revenues, cut its energy use by 20%, its water use by 80%. Denmark, in the last 6 or 7 years, has increased the size of its economy by 50%. You know how much its energy use has increased? Zero, nada. The United Kingdom has the European economy most like us. Their unemployment rate's about like ours. Unlike America, their wages are going up and poverty's going down. Why? They're going to beat their Kyoto targets by 50% by creating tens of thousands of new jobs in the United Kingdom for a clean energy future and not mortgaging their future to a distant part of the world. In healthcare, I think we ought to rewrite the Medicare drug benefit, and give the government the ability to bargain for lower prices so we can make a simpler, more affordable medicine bill for our seniors. I think we ought to give everybody electronic records with privacy protections and save $100 billion so we don't keep having the health insurance premiums going up. And then as we can afford it, we need to expand coverage. All the children in the state children's health insurance programs, we should insure more kids, and their parents ought to be eligible to be covered too if they pay a modest amount. Early retirees who lose their health insurance should be able to buy into Medicare. And everybody else ought to be able to buy into the federal health insurance program that all the congressmen and all the federal employees have. They get lots of choices. They don't have the same inflation. And their administrative cost is less than a third of what private insurers are. And in terms of government, I think we ought to restore the cuts in the college aid program and the after-school program. I think we ought to follow the environmental laws. I think we ought to appoint competent people, and I think we ought to have some conflict of interest rules so every government agency is not run by somebody who came out of the industry they're supposed to regulate, who's going to go back and get a bigger pay raise if they give the right decisions. Iowa's already got $1 billion invested in wind, $2 billion invested in biodiesel and ethanol. Already, you have. But Germany, a country 1/3 our size, produces more wind energy than we do. Japan, a country half our size, produces more solar than we do. We can do better. And people who say we can't do this, let me remind you, Brazil is energy independent. You really think they're better than we are? I like the Brazilians. It's one of my favorite countries on earth, but I don't think they're better than America. They can grow sugar cane and they can make 8 gallons of ethanol for every 1 gallon of gasoline. And with all of our cellulosic options that all the farmers can access, so far we're only at 4. 4 is a real good deal. It's a real good deal. It'll still be cheaper than gasoline, and we'll be independent, and we'll be doing the right thing by the economy, the environment. And I could give you lots and lots of other examples. So that's what I think we should do. We ought to go out there and tell every Democrat, every Republican, and every independent, we believe in evidence and argument, not assertion and attack. We are not, to use Bob Woodward's now immortal title, we are not in a state of denial. You only need denial if you run an ideological party where you've got the answer already and then the facts become irrelevant and inconvenient arguments and evidence has to be pushed aside. Another great writer, Ron Suskind, wrote a book called The 1% Solution about the way they make decisions. And he says that quite often Vice President Cheney and Secretary Rumsfeld and all these people, they refer to kind of derisively, not just to me, but to good Republicans like Colin Powell and Admiral Scowcroft, who are moderate. They say we're lesser political beings because, I swear to God, that's what the book said, because we live in the, quote, reality-based world. and that they are a higher order of political being because they understand when you've got as much power as America does, you just use your power to change reality. Well, I wrote about this so I can say it. I grew up in an alcoholic home. I spent half my childhood trying to get into the reality-based world. I like it here. I like it here. I can't imagine the most conservative Republican farmer in Iowa really wanting to get out of the reality-based world. That's a good way to lose a farm. And we're laughing, but this is serious. That's why everywhere I go, people are quiet. People want to think, they want to talk. What is the ideological land? Suppose you decided that Des Moines would become America's first totally green city, okay? Now, what is the ideological answer to whether you should have cars that run 100% on ethanol or 50% gasoline and ethanol, or you should do ethanol and electricity, and you should do what in what order? No ideological answer, is there? You got to think. And you actually have to know facts. You can't be in denial. You got to know something. How practical is it for Des Moines to do what Chicago did and put all these green roofs on? On a 90-degree summer day, a city rooftop will be 160 degrees, and you can take it to 80 if you just put shrubbery and grass down. Drastically changes the energy economy. There's no ideological answer. You got to think, and you have to know facts. So I want you to go out there and talk to your neighbors. Don't give up on any of these House seats. Win all these state elections. Win all the legislative seats you can. Tell them you want to represent them, and we've got to get things back in order. And those of you who, like me and Tom and Ruth, we're all still in pretty good shape, but if you've had more yesterdays than you've got tomorrows, at some point you reach a stage in your life when what really matters most to you is knowing that the children, the grandchildren you hope to have, every kid in the world will have the same chance you had to live their dreams. You don't want them killed by a roadside bomb. You don't want them run out of their house by climate change, unable to have a sustainable living. You don't want them to live in a country where some people are filthy rich and others are desperately poor. You don't want them to live in a place where they got good health care and the kid in the hospital room next door is about to get kicked out. We know, don't we? Get deep in our guts. That's why we're Democrats. We know that when the human genome scientists told us we were all genetically 99.9% the same, without regard to race, gender, ethnic group, region, whatever, that the founders of our country reasoned that over 200 years before the scientists figured it out. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor to form a more perfect union. They knew we would never be perfect. That's what the ideologues don't know. But they knew we could always be more perfect in a world that was reality-based but always full of hope, always thinking about kids, always thinking about the tomorrows. We got a big responsibility. Forget about 2008. Forget about the politics. Just go out and find somebody, look them dead in the eye, and say, you know this is not right. And our children, our grandchildren, and the children not yet born in this country and all across the world deserve better. This is America. We can do better. And this year, it's a job the Democrats have to do alone. Thank you, and God bless you.